Good morning, Bucknutters. It's Thursday, April 21st, 2016. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5, joined by the Midwest's finest, Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports, Steve Wiltfong. Steve, very eventful evening. You ready to rock?
Good morning, Daniel. Yeah, man, sitting outside the LA Fitness, already drank my smoothie, ready to talk a little Buckeyes and then try and sneak in a workout here.
I've never seen anything so bizarre as a guy trend all week for Maryland among our experts. This is Joshua Kaindoh, defensive end. Those of you who are on the site or have access to the internet know this by now. Joshua Kaindoh, defensive end standout, IMG Academy, Maryland native, thought to be going to Ohio State, then thought to be going to Maryland, visits Maryland. We're told he's going to Maryland, comes out with a top 4. Last night, no Maryland. Take it.
Well, the thought to go to Ohio State's a little strong. I think the pulse back in February was that Ohio State was the lead. But then, as
there were some crystal balls.
No question, crystal. I was one of them, but I crystal balled in Ohio State because I thought the Buckeyes were in front, but I didn't. It wasn't like I was saying it was a slam dunk and he was coming. I just liked where Ohio State stood with him. But Maryland certainly caught a lot of momentum. He visited this spring. He's had his parents. He's from the DMV. His parents have been on Maryland's campus, and high school sources, college sources, not just at Maryland, but amongst his other favorites, thought he was going to Maryland and thought it could happen soon. So last night was very surprising, and not just for the recruiting writers, but for our sources on the next level. And obviously you wonder if it's a troll job, and our Maryland insiders, who I think do a really nice job on Inside MD Sports, the 24/7 Sports affiliate, they still think he's coming to Maryland, and so they think it's a troll job. I still have trouble thinking that Kaindoh would troll everybody. He doesn't seem like that kind of kid. If you said, Steve, look at the top 247, who would you suspect would be someone to troll everybody into thinking that he wasn't going somewhere and then pick that person the next day or pick that school the next day? Kaindoh would have been pretty far down the list.
Who is he trolling?
Well, he maybe be all the media maybe saying he was going to Maryland soon, and he wants to, make a splash with his verbal. He's gonna make a splash anyway, even if it leaked, even if someone said Kaindoh for sure to Maryland, and then he came out 2 days later and said I'm going to Maryland. The Maryland nation would erupt. So I don't know. But yeah, the fans, just trying to maybe keep it a secret. Who knows? He's a kid. I tried to think of a million scenarios of why he would troll, and so he's a very mature kid, but he's still a kid. So maybe he was just hanging out with his teammates last night, and they thought, hey, it'd be funny if you named the top 4 that didn't have the school you were going to. All right, yeah, that is hilarious. But that's just, who knows? But I actually. And I was 2 minutes late to the Bucknuts Morning 5 this morning because I was talking to the high school coach that I met Kaindoh through at Sound Mind, Sound Body 2 years ago. And he thought that Maryland was down the list for Josh, and he thinks Josh is going to take more visits this summer and could even use some officials before deciding, and that he's not trolling anyone. So he's the first person to come out and say that to me from the new developments, and I've probably talked to at least 4 people since last night's tweet of his top 4. And in addition to that, I've talked to our Inside MD Sports guys who have talked to some different sets of people, and the vibe is still Maryland. But I'll say this, Penn State thought they had a great visit with Josh over the spring. Notre Dame, the intel there is that was a strong visit, and I had a story on that late last night after Kaindoh put out his top 4. I talked with Kaindoh's coach, who was with him at Notre Dame, and obviously anytime someone takes a visit to places like Ohio State or Notre Dame, 99 times out of 100 the visit's going to at least appear to be good. But I do think it was a good trip to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame certainly fits everything he's looking for, but the thing with Ohio State and Kaindoh is he came up, and to my knowledge, unless he took a secret trip to Ohio State. And I've asked twice. He just didn't visit Ohio State this spring, so that made me think, all right, well, for some reason they faded. Because talking to Kaindoh at the Nike camp, talking to Isaiah Pryor, talking to Marcus Williamson, talking to parents down there at that Florida Nike camp, it looked like Ohio State and Maryland were the top two. And then, Ohio State typically wins those battles against Maryland for top guys in the DMV. I mean, not always. They certainly don't bat 1,000, but that was my thinking back then. Now, I still kind of think he's going to Maryland, but I don't know. I don't know, Daniel. I don't know.
No, it's definitely bizarre. I've racked my brain on this. I've always said this, though, having the earlier first portion of my career dealt with this. This is an extreme example, but this is what life is like in the DMV for recruiting. Even though he's at IMG, these stories are kind of
the Wild Wild West.
It's a joke. It's ridiculous. I'm just telling you. I don't know why it is that way. Maybe it's because it's such a talent-rich area that has grown up without a dominant football team there, so it's always been open season. But if you'd have told me this was going on and asked me where he was from, I would have said he's from the DMV. And it's my home spot, and I love it. But it's not that surprising.
An Ohio State source asked me this morning if I thought he was trolling everybody. So it caught a lot of people off guard, but then optimism also comes along with being caught off guard because schools that have had him on campus have had good visits. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens. If he's not a Terp by next Tuesday, I'll believe the top four.
Interesting. Why is that?
Because the buzz was that he was going to commit this week. So I'll give him into next week. And if he's still uncommitted by next week, I'll come around on that top four being real.
That's interesting. Okay, cool. That's a good place to end that.
Because that'll go along with the high school coach I just spoke with this morning, who texted me and he saw my tweet and said, I don't know why Maryland was the perceived favorite. And I was like, because that's what everyone said. But he's like, so I'll believe, he's one guy against a lot of other sources that are typically right. So, we'll see what happens. I also want to talk about Chase Young, DMV guy.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, that's right.
From high school.
Another DMVer, by the way.
Yeah, what a great kid and what a great family. I enjoyed spending time with Chase Young and his dad at Sunday's Nike football training camp. I kind of had a bizarre situation with Chase. That's kind of been a weird deal for me as of late, but Chase visited Maryland like 6 or 7 times this spring. And,
Time out. That's important, but you need to put this in there when people say that. Maryland's campus is less than 2 miles from his high school.
It's like across the
street. So it literally, so it's not like it's, the term visit gets stretched. Go ahead.
It's almost as close as Antoine Simmons is to Michigan. It's like,
you can't see the goalposts from campus, but it's one turn.
Right, no question. But still, visited 6 or 7 times. You got a new staff. DJ Durkin's going to be a good head coach recruiter. That's what places like Maryland need. That's why Rutgers, you see Chris Ash, guys that have worked for head coaches like Urban Meyer and Jim Harbaugh, or both in Durkin's case. He understands the head coaches. He sees the head coach working their asses off at a place where they could be just the closer, So he knows that he's got to be the Clayton Kershaw at Maryland. So he's involved. So you combine that, and Durkin being a defensive guy, Maryland getting Chase Young on campus so many times, so many of his former teammates going to Maryland. I just said, to hell with it. I'm crystal ball in Maryland, but I made a mistake. I have great contacts at DeMatha, and that was after talking with the Maryland contacts. I was like, I'm going fine. Finally, I'll put in Chase to Maryland. But then I talked to some DeMatha contacts the next morning, Ohio State. And then I spent time with Chase Sunday. I think I feel good about my Ohio State pick now. Not a slam dunk. Alabama's certainly going to have a say. USC could have a say, although I don't see them going that far. They're definitely going to get an opportunity. This is going to go the distance assigned today. Maryland's certainly in it, but I like the Buckeyes, and I know the Buckeyes are going to recruit the hell out of him. Larry Johnson is doing a fantastic job. You know, Urban Meyer is going to be a presence. Chase Young's parents like Ohio State. So I like the Buckeyes here for Chase. I made the quick switch, and then I made the quick switch, and then Chase canceled his Ohio State visit. So it's like, Steve, you're a dumbass. But no, I actually still like my Ohio State pick, even though he didn't make it to back for Ohio State spring game.
I do want to mention this. When you take the DMV into account, DeMatha would be the outlier to the previous statement I made. While kids go to, if you go back and look at DeMatha's, where they send kids, I know the stretch I covered there for 10 years, they had over 100 Division I football players. They averaged over 10 a year. And if they're not the best basketball program in the country, they're close.
Chase Young plays basketball too. That's cool.
Yeah, if that means, to play varsity basketball at DeMatha means I know they had a stretch of 20 years where every single guy, I know this stat's going to sound ridiculous, every single guy played college basketball. Every guy in varsity, not every starter, every guy. So, that said, DeMatha guys go across the country for sports. It's not a Maryland stronghold by any stretch. Just for like Darian Harris on Michigan State is a DeMatha kid. They're DeMatha kids all across the country, so I want to make sure DeMatha gets credit. It's not as much of a Oladipo, Danny Ferry, Adrian Dantley. You have a hard time looking at it at a roster in a major sport, not finding a DeMatha kid on there. If it's not the best athletic high school in the country, it's in the mix. It's unbelievable.
Chase Young's dad is 6'10", 300 pounds, but it was an awesome, nice guy.
Remember the Kawanjo brothers?
Oh, yeah.
I was going through my brain here.
But you want to talk about some DMV craziness? Obviously, Cyrus announced for Auburn on signing day and then signed with Alabama an hour later.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. And we're talking about schools all across the country. They had a great – okay, how about this? Who's the best player on DeMatha's basketball team right now? He's a McDonald's All-American. His name is Markel Fultz. You know where he's going to college? The University of Washington. Okay, so a guy came from Seattle and recruited him out there. So just a little, that's over DMV for everybody. Let's bring it back into Columbus. One guy that really deserves a lot of credit and kind of a newer guy to the staff, Tony Alford looks like he can recruit him some running backs. Already got J.K. Dobbins in the fold, got Cam Akers up here. Have we not given Tony Alford enough credit for what he's done so far and what he can do going forward?
Well, Tony can just flat recruit. It's not just running backs. Obviously he had a top board this year. Running backs an important position again for the Buckeyes in this class. And they're swinging at big-time guys, and they're in the mix for them all. J.K. Dobbins, Tony Alford had communication with him daily, worked his ass off to get the Lone Star State standout, freak athlete, just a great kid, too. You're talking about a kid that could fit in any environment, a Stanford. He's that type of kid. Obviously, he's an Ohio State type kid because he's committed to the Buckeyes, but just trying to give people a feel for what kind of young man J.K. is. He was being recruited by all kinds of different schools from all kinds of different directions. But Tony Alford not only won the trust of J.K., but won the trust of his family, so much so that he committed before visiting. And no one was rushing him. He doesn't have a timeline. You're a blue chip back, baby. You can wait. He could have taken this all the way to February, and everyone would have still been on the line. But Tony Alford closed it, brought him on campus. The visit was awesome. Was everything J.K. and his family thought it would be and more. And so with that, hey, it's still recruiting. Other schools are still offering J.K. and I'm sure his phone's not completely off, but just a big recruiting win for Tony. And then Cam Akers, Buckeyes have been in the top 2 or 3 for the whole time. Even when he was committed to Alabama, Tony was working hard, keeping in touch with Cam. Najee Harris was just on campus. I know Tony made an impression on Najee. Najee certainly, and we talked about this on the Morning Five before, is intrigued by the success that Ohio State's had at the running back position since Urban Meyer and company have hired. Tony Alford committed Lewis Nix to Notre Dame. And for those that don't remember, Lewis Nix was a top 100 defensive tackle from Jacksonville, Florida, who was committed to Miami. He flipped him when in between coaches. Charlie Weiss was fired and Brian Kelly wasn't hired yet. And Lewis Nix still committed to Notre Dame because of Tony Alford. That's one of the better recruiting jobs I've ever seen. And then it's not like Nix.
That's awesome.
Came to Notre Dame and was an All-American. So it's not like, he couldn't go anywhere else. So it was, it's just when you recruit out of area or when you recruit nationally like Ohio State does, you're going to have different guys with the hot hand different years, and right now, Coach Alford's got the hot hand and this just lined up so far so good this year, and he's got a chance to land another big piece down the road.
No question, and I imagine it's a little bit easier to recruit running backs when the one you just dealt with is being argued to be picked in the top 5 picks of the draft. So
it is, but when you're recruiting kids that are playing right away, when there's so many powerhouse programs within driving distance, whether you're going into SEC country or Big 12 country, I don't care how many first rounders you had. Everyone's got running backs. Everyone's got some kind of pedigree they can point to and say, JK, I sent this kid to the league, or I sent that kid to the league that, Ohio State certainly got their pedigree also, but it is not easy to convince a kid that's got to fly to your school to pass up on 7 or 8 other powerhouse programs that he could drive to. So kudos to Zach Smith for doing that with Benjamin Victor and Tony Alford with JK, and the list goes on.
The list does go on, and we hope it goes on for many, many years. Steve, we appreciate you joining us. Have a great one, Bucknutters.
Appreciate it, guys.